Thanks, Deputy. At the outset, I want to congratulate the Gardaí on the swift action that they took in Cork to prevent any rioting and prevent any criminal damage. I don't think it's actually the case that there were 100 youths with masks on them on the street. That is under investigation at the moment, but I don't think that is quite what happened. But certainly the Gardaí did act swiftly to prevent any crimes taking place, to prevent any criminal damage. And that's a very good example of policing working, not just in Cork, but also in Ireland more broadly. We have over 14,000 Gardaí now. We reversed the decision of the previous government to stop the recruitment of Gardaí and have been recruiting and adding to our Garda force ever since. And there must be over 1,000 Gardaí based in Cork, in the city and county. How they're rostered and how they're deployed is, of course, a matter for the Garda Commissioner rather than the government, and that is as it should be. I obviously respect the fact that the GRA has called for additional Garda resources in Cork, but they've also called for them on the border and in Donegal and also in Dublin. And what that says to me is we need more Gardaí and better equipped Gardaí in all parts of our country, not just in Cork, but all over Ireland. And that is precisely what we're doing. So the Garda budget for next year will be nearly 1.9 billion, the biggest Garda budget ever. That will enable us to continue to recruit more Gardaí. And also the reforms that are being led by the Commissioner means more Garda staff as well. And that means taking Gardaí out of offices, away from counters, and out onto the streets, into patrol cars, onto bikes, in the community where people want to see them. And that is all very much underway. And that is the guarantee that I can give to people, not just in Cork, but in all parts of the country, that they will continue to see an increase in the number of Gardaí in their community, not just because we're recruiting additional Gardaí, but also because we're equipping them better, and also because we're reforming the Garda service so that there's fewer chiefs, less management, less administration, and more Gardaí on the beat, on the street, in cars, available for the public to see them, which is what the public wants.
Robbery from the person between January and September this year in Cork, up 90%. Assaults causing harm between January and September this year, up 16%. Minor assaults between January and September this year in Cork City, up 19%. That is the reality we're dealing with. And you can come in and you can talk about additional resources all you want. They're not coming to Cork. Now, I asked you a very specific question. You gave a commitment last week, Taoiseach, that you would raise the concerns that I raised with you this day last week in this chamber. You would raise them with the Garda Commissioner. Have you done so? And if not, why not?
Thanks, Deputy. I just haven't had the opportunity to do that yet, but I will. I will the next time I meet the Garda Commissioner. We do meet regularly in the context of the Cabinet Subcommittee on Security, and the Minister for Justice meets him more regularly than I do, as you can imagine. He has already raised that issue with the Garda Commissioner on behalf of the Government. I appreciate that you put forward some statistics there, and I'm a believer in science. This is Science Week, and I like statistics, but I think sometimes we can all be a little bit selective in our use of statistics. So I'll give you two other figures you didn't mention. There are, and I'll give you an example of some other statistics, and there are individuals behind them too. In the past year, across the state, burglaries down by 10%, and that's something that we should welcome and something that's to be encouraged, particularly in rural areas where we're seeing a significant reduction in burglaries because of action the Gardaí have taken. And also in the past year, murders and homicide offences down by 40%, and that is down to the excellent work that the Gardaí are doing.
Taoiseach, Miss Dara Quigley, a constituent from Clonshock in Dublin Bay North, died tragically by drowning on April 12, 2017. Dara was a talented young journalist and community activist. Among her writings, she wrote a sharp and insightful blog, Degree of Uncertainty, and articles, of course, for the Dublin Inquirer newspaper. Her community activities included a strong role in the water charges protest movement. On the morning of April 7, 2017, Dara was emotionally distressed and was found walking naked on Harcourt Street by an Garda Síochána who detained her under the Mental Health Act 2001. This incident was allegedly recorded by Garda CCTV cameras, and a recording of the footage showing Dara in great distress was allegedly shared in a WhatsApp group, posted onto Facebook and other sites, and viewed over 125,000 times. Dara became aware of the disclosure while spending some time in rural County Tipperary, and 5 days later she died there by drowning. The tragedy, of course, has had a devastating impact, Taoiseach, on Dara's mother, Miss Aileen Malone, her siblings and family, and they've striven tirelessly to secure accountability and justice for Dara and to support moves in this House and by the Irish Council for Civil Liberties to end online image-based sexual abuse. GSOC, of course, undertook an investigation into the leak and dissemination of the CCTV footage, and last August GSOC informed me that their disciplinary investigation had concluded, and a report pursuant to Section 97 of the Garda Síochána Act 2005 containing recommendations was forwarded to Garda Commissioner Harris on July 25th last. GSOC went on to say that the matter rests with the Garda Commissioner now in terms of the application of the Garda discipline regulations, but was unable to give any kind of time frame to the family or to myself. Taoiseach, Dara's mum and family requested a copy of this GSOC report, but this has been refused, and surely they are entitled to that, Taoiseach. In August 2018, the Data Protection Commissioner confirmed that Aileen Malone that Dara was the victim of a non-authorised data breach, and of course, Taoiseach, that's an offence under Section 22 of the Data Protection Act as amended. I was also informed by GSOC that Mr Joe Kelly, the coroner for North Tipperary, was preparing to hold the inquest into Dara's death last month, but this still hasn't happened, Taoiseach. Dara's mother and her siblings also asked, of course, for a meeting with Garda Commissioner Drew Harris, which I, of course, supported. I contacted the Commissioner, but again, that's so far been declined. So would you agree, Taoiseach, that there can be appalling consequences from the non-consensual distribution of private and intimate images? Would you also agree that it's particularly shocking that the publication of these images is based on CCTV footage allegedly linked to Garda Síochána? So will GSOC now report, will the GSOC report be made speedily available to Aileen and the family and to their solicitor, Mr Gareth Noble, so the long-delayed inquest may be held? And of course, over recent weeks, Taoiseach, as you know, journalist Joe Duffy and many other of our colleagues in journalism, we've had a major public debate about harassment and bullying, and the stories of other tragic victims of online abuse have been brought to public attention. I'm aware of the Justice Committee's work in this regard, led by Deputy O'Quailon, and of Deputy Howland's Harassment, Harmful Communications and Related Offences Bill 2017. But Taoiseach, don't we need to act very fast in this whole area? Thanks, Cian.
Thanks, Deputy, and I do agree with both of your statements in relation to, or rather both of your questions, in relation to your question on whether the GSOC report can be provided to the family. As you know, GSOC, the Garda Service, Garda Síochána Ombudsman Commission, operates independently of government and independently of the Gardaí, but we will make inquiries as to whether it's possible to share that with the family. I think at the very least the family should know why, if there are some reasons to why it can't be shared. I also want to take this opportunity to express my condolences and that of the government to the family of Dara Quigley, who sadly died by suicide. The loss of a loved one is always difficult, and I think the grief and trauma experienced by her family due to the circumstances of her death must be particularly harrowing. I also want to commend her family for the way in which they are raising awareness of important issues, including the sharing of intimate images without consent, which can have an enormously severe impact on people's mental health. And I'm confident that what they're doing will add to the legacy of Dara herself through her work and achievements as a journalist and also as an activist. I'm aware of 4 particular issues that are being raised. One, our laws on the creation and sharing of private sexual or intimate images without consent, which Deputy Broughan mentioned, appropriate training for Gardaí, the regulation of CCTV, and also greater transparency from social media companies about how they deal with image-based sexual abuse. Regarding the creation or sharing of private sexual or intimate images without consent, the Government has agreed an action plan for online safety, following the Law Reform Commission report on harmful communications and digital safety, which highlighted the ways in which modern technology can be used to cause harm. While there is currently legislation dealing with harassment and harmful communications, changes now need to be made to ensure that our laws reflect advances in technology and changes in the way we communicate. And the Minister for Justice and Equality is already working on legislation to strengthen the criminal law in the area of harmful communications, both online and offline. As well as modernising the laws in relation to the sending of threatening or abusive messages, the Harassment, Harmful Communications and Related Offences Bill, being sponsored by Deputy Howland, will introduce a distinct offence of stalking and also provide 2 offences to deal with non-consensual recording and distribution of intimate images. In relation to the training of Gardaí, I want to inform the House that the Gardaí are continuously improving their specialist services, And to respond to the needs of special victims, the Commissioner is now setting up Divisional Protective Services units, the equivalent of SVUs that people will be familiar with from New York and the United States. And these will have specially trained officers who can engage and interview victims of sexual-related crimes. And that will enable a much more consistent and professional approach to the investigation of sexual crimes and domestic violence in particular. More generally, a range of human rights-focused reforms are being introduced under a policing service for the future, including the establishment of a human rights unit in An Garda Síochána and human rights training for all Garda members, and the codification of legislation defining police powers of arrest, search and detention.
Thank you, Taoiseach. Deputy Broughan.